But no,
That's
let
good.
me send you this. I'm going to send you this Tesla cold call. It's really cool. So it's getting a lot of. I think it's really interesting as well for something for us to talk about, because basically what they do is Tesla have got this. Here it is. Oh, you can. Looks like you can.
Yeah, I can.
Check that out for a second.
Wow, this is cool. I didn't know they do this yet. This is Tesla. Tesla created this.
I'm not sure who created it. I'm sure Tesla didn't necessarily create it.
AI. It's just a specific tool. Jesus.
Yeah, AI.
Okay, because that's funny. Because my whole point is that I can automate pretty much anything up until conversations. Like if I do contract recruitment, usually I don't really need to talk to the contractor if I don't want to. So that side can be automated. But if you're looking at the client side, a client always wants to talk to someone, right? That
Yeah,
you're never going to do a sale unless you talk to someone. So that's the only thing that can't be automated.
yeah. Well,
If you can automate that, that's fine.
So that sales call, some people were super impressed with it, and some people were like a few days ago, I released an episode. I think it might have been yesterday, actually. I can't remember. But I had the guys from We Have a Meeting on, so they're like prospecting experts, sales experts. And Jack Frimston commented on the post that was going viral. Like, this is an absolutely horrendous cold call, or just cold sales call general.
But the fact that it is already this good means that it'll be awesome in 2 years.
Yeah, in theory, yeah. In theory, like,
it's going to get better.
Well, the thing is, these have been around for ages, though. This isn't new, so.
Well, it's new that you can actually talk to an AI and that it sounds sort of that you can have a proper phone call with an AI. That's something that's relatively new, right? You could have like a voice call going on with the customer service, but that's not really the same.
Yeah, so because that Air AI Tesla call, so it is a sales call, but it's basically someone who's they've already expressed an interest, or I think they I think they booked a test drive, or we're going to book a test drive or something. So it's not like the guy was already ready to buy. Do you know what I mean? He was always he just needed someone to call him. So in that situation, I think it's like really useful, because obviously you're just saving loads of time, and as long as a person can speak, they're probably going to close them on it, because the guy, if you listen to the call, it's he's super interested in Tesla. His friends have all got Teslas or something, and he's like, yeah, I really want to test drive. Yeah, so
he's warm, but the
for
fact
sure.
that there's a flowing conversation going on already means a lot. And I'm like, if you crack this code, you can do thousands of sales calls at the same time. So somebody's going to try and crack this code, because if they do, they're going to make a shit ton of money. So there's going to be people doing this in the next few years.
But here's what's going to be interesting, right? So someone made a really good point. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this, actually. So are we going to get to a point quite quickly then where, by law, these AI robots, cold call robots, whatever you want to call them, are they going to have to stay at the start of the call? By the way, by law, I have to disclose that I am not a human. I am a robot. Would you like to hang up now, or would you like to continue the conversation? Because surely, like, being a human, and I had this conversation with someone else on the podcast a few weeks ago, like, there is a human element to things, right? And then if you find out the person you've been speaking to isn't actually a person, you actually feel quite conned a lot of the time. Like, art's a really good example, okay? So if I gave you this painting and you were like, this is an absolutely amazing painting, I'll pay £100,000 for it, right? And then you find out it was generated on AI in 20 seconds. You might feel a bit different about that painting now, because someone's not put that time and effort on. Like, there's a big difference between an artist spending a year on a painting and you buying it, and me knocking something up for a $5 and selling it on to you or whatever.
Yeah, but what is the difference? It's the input that someone gives to it, right? But there's also the story. So the reason you're gonna do business with me in the end is because of my story. I can automate the story, right? So I think in a few years we're gonna go to a point where we see a lot more automation, but then eventually you're gonna have legislation that says, hey, you need to disclose that you're a robot when you start. Of course.
Yeah. And is that then going to make stuff like this really ineffective? Because people,
Yeah.
half of the battle and the skill with cold calling is a lot of people won't hang up on you because they feel emotionally connected to you as a fellow human, and they don't want to it's a very complicated, obviously, but some people won't hang up on people because they feel bad for the person because they're like, I don't hurt their feelings. I'll listen to what they have to say. Maybe they've got a family to feed, etc., etc. But if that person called you and was like, "Hello, I am a robot from Tesla," and then you're just like, "Oh, fuck off," and you just put the phone down, and you just won't care, will you? Because it's a robot.
Yeah. When you have to disclose you're a robot at the start, nobody's going to answer your calls for sure. So there's going to be like a small window in which this actually works really well, and we get legislation, and in that time you can make a lot of money.
Yeah, well, exactly. You're certainly right. There's going to be, there's always a lag period of like something comes out. There's a golden period of it working really well, and you can make hay while the sun's shining. How big that window is going to be? It could be weeks, months, years. I don't know. But then what's going to happen after? Do we then have a situation where it's not too dissimilar to like what's going on with automation software for LinkedIn at the moment, right? So everyone was like, and I'm going through this at the moment because I signed up to an automation software about 2 months ago, and
Which
as
one?
you can probably imagine, I was like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. I've got my messaging sequence, which I know works for emails. I haven't automated my email stuff because I like to personalize stuff, but I'll just get it pumped out on LinkedIn, pump it out on LinkedIn, and it's doing it all for me, right?
Yeah.
And it's not worked at all. And I was like, oh, I thought I'd be getting like 5 meetings a day, sort of thing. But then there's a deeper level to it because obviously everyone's using automation now, so everyone knows that it's automation, or they assume. I wrote a manual message to someone the other day, like literally, I wrote it, and he come back saying, "Oh, is this an automated message, David? I'm going to ignore you." And I was just like, "No, I wrote this. No, sorry, I wrote this." And now everyone's assuming that the manual stuff. So this is where it's going to get really interesting over the next few years with messaging and cold calling and stuff.
That's true. Yeah, we should look into your flows, man. Like it does work, but it's all down to segmentation of your lists. You have to niche it down really far. That'll help.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. There's a skill to it. It's everyone thinks that automation's easy. It just I'm going to be a millionaire. I've got an automation messaging system. I can go on holiday now for 6 months.
I used to always allow clients of mine to create the lists that actually went into the automation systems, but they're not allowed to create lists anymore because the list needs to be niched down so far that we can create custom messages that it feels like you're sending them a personal message, and it really takes a lot of time. So you don't do automation because you want to save time. Yeah, of course you do. If you're connecting two tools, you're saving time. But if you're talking about doing outreach, like sending messages, it's more, at least on LinkedIn, it's more about structuring it, making it predictable, knowing, hey, we have to spend a lot of time up front. And after that, we'll get X percentage of meetings, and then just letting it run. But it still takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and also you need to know your market, you need to know your ICP and all that kind of stuff. This is all stuff that I'm learning at the moment because, again, and it hasn't worked, by the way. It really hasn't worked. It's worked great with growing my connection and starting conversations and that sort of stuff, and then I take over as a human. But in terms of like just automating the process and just trying to book meetings, the more I've looked into it, like who was it I was saw the other day? An account executive called Julia Carter. She's coming on as well on the podcast in a few weeks. But she's had some really great success with emails, and what she does is she doesn't actually personalize her emails per email, but she creates such a targeted list that she creates an email that's relevant to all of them. So though she's not spending that time per email, like you were saying, her list is so targeted that all those people, she doesn't need to personalize each email because they were relevant.
Yeah. It's the same as in as when we do job leads automations. Like we also send emails for clients, right? And we do one scrape, but then we segment it down to like 4 or 5 different email flows. And to give you an example, what we do is if you have data engineers for SMB businesses, maybe up to 60 people in size, what we'll do is we'll make an email flow specific to them, to that size of business, and then that email flow will say, hey, we know as a growing company, a growing IT firm, it's very hard to get data engineers because Google is willing to pay double for the same type of quality. So in order to get the right quality, you need to get them early in their career. We can help you with that. So then you're naming a specific issue that you know that probably 90+% of these type of businesses will have, and then they'll react to that. And then so if I do one script for a data engineer, I could have maybe 4 or 5 different email flows running that names a problem that's specific to their business. That works.
Yeah, it's all super interesting. Super.
Yeah.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how things grow. Yeah, it's just I feel like it's never going to solve, like, we're never going to get to a point where you can just print money, because everyone picks up trends. Like once you're using it, it probably means like thousands of others are using it, which means it's no longer special. Yeah. But it's a really fascinating time we live in the sales world as well, and the recruitment world, because we've got all this tech. Nobody really knows how to use it properly, and everyone's just sort of trying shit out. A lot of it is like, I know I've heard some horror stories. I was speaking to someone the other day, and they set up like a sequence. I won't name their name, but they set up a sequence. And
you know who you are.
yeah, you know who you are. And they basically they were doing it on behalf of their CEO.
Yeah.
So they set up this sequence, and they pressed the button, and the sequence started. But they did something wrong in the settings, because it just started sending out like the wrong message to 600 people. And they didn't know how to stop the sequence. So I was talking to them, and they were literally talking to me, and they were like, I'm really stressed out. And I'm like, why? And they go, I'm watching this sequence go out, and I don't know how to turn it off because it's started now. So, yeah, there's certainly a skill to it.
If you're ever in dire need, send me a DM. I'll help you.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, Cas, so look, thanks so much for coming on. Can you just give us for people who don't know who you are, can you just give us an overview of like who you are, what you're doing at the moment? Because I know you're involved in quite a few projects and founder of a few projects and stuff. So just give us an overview of what you do, what you are.
Cool. My name is Cas. For English listeners, Cash without the H. Cas. I'm 33, living in Amsterdam, wife and kid, enjoying life. I started to go all the way back to the beginning. I started like a lot of entrepreneurs start, I think, in middle school and high school, being fully ADHD and tuning out all the time, not really spending any time, which gave me a lot of crap in school. You need to get your grades, and I wasn't getting them, although the brains were there, but I wasn't doing anything. And then I luckily found competitive sailing when I was about 14 years old, which was awesome because it really gave me a purpose in life. And us ADHD people know when we have a purpose, we can go out and we can go out and get it. So from my 14th until my 22nd, I've done a lot of competitive sailing, a lot of world championships, European championships. I was a national junior champion, so I've done a lot of sailing with gold medalists of the Olympics. It was a lot of fun, and it really gave me a purpose in high school. So because I wanted to do sailing, that gave me the drive to also finish school. So it really helped me there, which was a lot of fun. And then when I was 22. You go out and you start studying, because sailing is not a sport where you make a lot of money. So most sailors, unless you're at the top of the top and going for Olympics, usually you also have to study or you have to work next to it. So I went to college, but when you go to college, you also like drinking beer, right? So eventually I got to a point where I wanted to drink beer more badly than I wanted to sail. Also having done more than a few days of being really hungover and sailing after, which is really crap, because then you have sailmates who want to push and then you're hungover as shit. So that's really bad.
Yeah.
So eventually eventually I had to stop that. And then I took on the fraternity life for a few years. I had a lot of fun, finished my college. And after that, I needed to get to work. And I studied sport management because my idea always was, if I can't be the top athlete, then I'll be their manager, and then I'm still the boss, right? Logical. But the issue with sports is that although it's a lot of fun to learn business through sports, the sports industry in general is very much event focused or sponsorship focused. So either you have to be an event planner, or at the other end, you're like a football broker, which I didn't want to be, right? So, or you're working for an international, for the International Sailing Federation, and that's more of a project management function. So, if you're looking for somewhere where you can really use your brain in the way that it's wired, like me with my ADHD, the sports industry wasn't really good for me. So I really wanted to find something else. And then, if you don't know what you're doing and you have a lot of energy, usually you do sales, right? So I actually came to a recruiter, and he said, "Hey, why don't you, do you want to be in sales?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be an account manager. That's fun." And he's like, "But I think you're bored pretty quickly, right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm bored pretty quickly." It's like, "If you sell the same product every day, that's going to get pretty boring, right?" I'm like, "Probably, but we'll find out." And he's like, "If you sell people, then it's different every day. So you have to be a recruiter." And I was like, "Why not? Let's do recruiting." And that actually brought me to Robert Walters, which you probably know, a global finance firm, which is very old school, always suit and tie to work type of deal. I worked there for 3 years, went up the ranks, and I actually started a whole new healthcare division, which was a lot of fun. But it's also very rigid, right? So you do it in this way. You do this many cold calls a week. You take a suit and tie to work. And as you can probably see, that's not really my style in the end. So I kept wanting to do new things, wanted to innovate over there. I said, "Hey, we have opportunities here. Let's do this." But there's not really room in a large business like that for a lot of innovation. You just have to get on and do the work. So eventually it was time to part ways. After that, I've done a little traveling. So you said you like traveling. I've always traveled with my girlfriend, but also alone. And after that, we actually went to Australia. I don't know if you've ever been.
I actually haven't been to Australia. No, I was meant to in 2015. So I went on I went to Asia, like Southeast Asia, on my own,
Yeah,
and
cool.
yeah, literally just my backpack, and landed in Bangkok, and I was just like, "What happens now?" sort of thing. And I was actually
Cool.
planning on going to Australia afterwards, but I think I started running out of money like 3 months in. I think I overspent massively in Asia, and I got to the point where I was like, I don't have enough time. Like, if I'd have gone to Australia, I would have had to get a job straight away, and I was like, "What's the point in that?" So
Yeah, yeah.
I just went home after like 3 months. But yeah, no, I really would love to go to Australia. Where did you go then in Australia?
We did the old school East Coast thing. So we went from Sydney all the way up to Cairns and then back down again. Which with my girlfriend with a van, which was a lot of fun. And it was actually the only country I've ever been to where we were when we were walking around in. I thought it was Brisbane, which is halfway up. We were like,
Hmm.
we could move here tomorrow and we'd have a great life, or in Sydney or whatever. The vibe is just awesome there. It's just the UK or South Africa, but then with nice weather. It's so good.
Yeah, no,
It's so good
it
over
seems
there.
really cool. Like I think Melbourne, because I was actually looking to move there. Actually, I just remembered because I was looking to move. I got to a point in like 2017 where I was so sick of the UK and like the weather that I
Hmm.
really like I actively started looking to move abroad. And recruitment, one of the reasons I got into recruitment was I heard that you can sort of move around the world with it because it's such an in-demand skill set. And I was trying to
Yeah,
move to I think I zoned it down to LA, Sydney, um yeah, I think it was like LA and Sydney.
yeah.
But the visa laws changed. But no, I've apart from
Yeah.
the like how expensive it is, I've heard it's like absolutely awesome.
It's awesome. If you love the outdoor life, on the weekends, go out camping, ride a motorbike, or ride a mountain bike around, hiking. It's so good. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's really interesting actually because one of my friends he's sort of like he's like a nomad. He's like I think he's like
Yeah.
almost 40 now. He might be yeah shit he's almost 40, but
Yeah.
he's like one of those dudes who's just like lives life in the present, like no interest in a career. lives now like he's like 22, and he was telling me about the culture in not so much Australia, but it sounds similar, but in New Zealand. I don't know if you've been to
Yeah.
New Zealand.
No, it was high on the list. We were going to go and then Corona hit. And then we got a Corona baby, like everyone.
Right. Yeah. Lots of those bouncing around. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was telling me how like the culture is so different because he's from London, and he was saying to me how um everyone just like they don't necessarily judge you on your materials or like what you own or how big your house is. It's more like where have you traveled or what do you do on the weekends or what hikes have you been? And it's such like a well, I from the sounds of it, I really agree as well. But it's such a like a happier and more healthy way to live.
Yeah. I met a lot of happy people in Australia, locals, just happy people enjoying life. It's awesome.
So what were you doing? Like
Okay.
you had a van, you said, you just driving around.
Yeah, van, drive around, camp, and then do fun stuff. Yeah, what do you do when you're in Australia? You drink sometimes, you hike, you do surf. The coolest thing we did actually was we went to a friend of Elina's, my girlfriend. She lived on a farm, but like in full outback farm. It was like 200 kilometers inland, and we went there, and there was no tourists at all, and it was just it was an hour on a dirt road just to get there, and then you came there, and it was like one of the biggest farms in the regions, and it was just a meditative experience, right? So you just turned off your engine. It was quiet, and all you had there were cows and a few people, and that's it. It
Well,
was
just
so
like
cool.
desert sort of thing.
Desert, yeah, full blown desert. And
That
then we
sounds
got
fucking
there,
awesome.
and then the guy was like, "Hey, we have a warthog here that was caught by a dingo, so he's he's limping around somewhere, so we have to shoot the warthog. You want to join?" We were like, "Yeah, sure." So then we shot a warthog. At least we
That's
didn't, but
mad.
another guy did. It was like full farm business, daily business. Like, hey, we have to shoot a warthog. Come and join, have fun.
What? So was it like a house on a ranch, and then just no? There's just nothing else.
Yeah, for like an hour straight of driving at 60 kilometers an hour, nothing, complete nothing.
That's fucking crazy. It's crazy how
So
some
cool,
people
man.
live, right? Like especially in Australia, because you've got the Aborigines.
Yeah,
They live in I think the bush. Is it called? I'm very
yeah,
limited. I got a lot of my knowledge of Australia from like Crocodile Dundee and stuff, but um,
yeah. That's cool.
yeah, it sounds really awesome, dude.
Okay.
And were you like staying in hostels or like
No, in
the
the
van?
van. In the van.
Just the
In the
van.
van. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
That's so much fun. It's so much fun. But then, yeah, before we spend our whole time on traveling, because I like it, we'll talk about that later. So then I came back, and then I actually just from then until now, I actually just keep on trying to do what my brain is good at, and what my brain likes is seeing a situation and then trying to find a better way to do it, and then implement that solution, and then move on to the next thing. So first, I was part of 3 companies back to back, and I really had a free role in every one of those businesses. They were all recruitment focused, and then they would just come to me with issues saying, "Hey, we don't have enough candidates. Can you look
Mm.
into ways to getting more candidates?" Or, "Hey, we need more sales. Can you do sales?" And then it always started with, "Hey, we need an extra account manager. Can you be that for the next 3 months?" I was like, "Okay, that's fine." But rather than just be the account manager, I was like, "How can we make this better and quicker? So how can we implement a CRM system? How can we set up email cadences? How can we get more meetings? How can we use LinkedIn automation to do it?" And that's really just a rabbit hole that I've been falling down for 5 years now, getting further and further in, just looking into recruitment processes, automation, and just looking at businesses now as a consultant, and just looking, hey, what are your issues? How can we solve those issues? And sometimes that's an easy fix. So just say you need to use LinkedIn automation, or you need to be using ads because your specific candidate group or your talent pool is online, and just run ads and you'll be fine. And sometimes we have to implement a whole tech stack saying, hey, you need a new applicant tracking system, or you need one, because actually a lot of recruitment firms don't have an applicant tracking system. So they don't have multi-posting possibilities or anything. And then if you implement an ATS system, you need to connect that to your CRM system. So you're actually doing something with the leads you're getting in. You need to set up, landing pages, getting people's emails, etc., etc. So it really differs. For sometimes we're just running a few ads for companies to help them get more candidates, and sometimes we have to implement a whole tech stack and also do all of the content.
So how would you like summarize what you've been doing the last few years? Because obviously we've discussed this, but if anyone looks at your LinkedIn page, it looks like you've been involved in quite a lot of things right the last few years. So would you say you're sort of like so almost like a recruitment optimization consultant? Like you sort of solve problems, whether it's to do with technology or sometimes it could actually do, like, I know you actually, at least up until recently, you're actually doing recruitment, right? Like hands-on recruitment for firms.
I'm still doing a little bit of part-time IT recruitment, but that's just because I run, but that's just a two-person business. So I really run his recruitment side, and he runs the sales side. And
Right.
we split the fee. But it's hard to put a name on it. But I used to call myself a recruitment growth hacker, but that really doesn't cover the whole load. But what I usually do is, we come into a business, the business has an issue, then we run experiments, we evaluate those experiments, and then we move on to the next, all with a focus to get either save time, get more candidates, or get more clients.
So
that's essentially what I do.
So from a business development perspective then, like how are you actually going out and winning these clients? Like, are you doing it through LinkedIn? Are you like email campaigns?
Yeah,
how would you actually do it?
That honestly depends on the business of course, that we're talking about. But what you'd say is, you get to a business and they say, hey, we need more clients. And then first you look at the current ways they're getting their clients, which could be either word of mouth. Like we've had a banger of an economy for the last 10 years, right? So most recruitment firms have just been going mouth to mouth to mouth and have actually had more than enough business to fill. Now they have to really turn and have to do sales. So a lot of the firms, they're not doing any LinkedIn outreach. They're not doing any email. They're not doing active referral ask, which is basic 101, right? Ask your good clients for referrals. So sometimes it's just really basic to say, hey, email all your best clients and ask for a referral. That's just point one. Or look through your candidate databases to your candidates that are now possibly your clients. It actually just starts with that. But it also, after that, we have to implement whole systems. And that usually amounts to putting in a CRM system, making sure cold email is set up, get leads for them from Apollo or any other platform, ensure that we email them with a proper, interesting messaging, create a whole email cadence that doesn't just last like 3 messages, but create something that will come back to them in 3 months' time, so that people are continuously activated for your brand. Posting on LinkedIn, doing LinkedIn automation. It's an all-encompassing thing. You cannot just do one thing and then expect it to work. If you want to do proper sales and recruitment, the sad story is there's no golden egg. Usually it's and do LinkedIn automation, and we do email cold outreach. We do email marketing to existing clients. We do events. We do ads if that's relevant for the business. It's all. And if you do it all, then leads start coming in, because you might get 1 lead a month from Google ads. You might get 5 leads a month from email. You might get 5 leads a month from LinkedIn. And then when you bunch all of them together, then eventually you get to enough leads to fill your pipeline. But if you only do one thing and expect it to be the golden egg, it's never going to work.
Yeah, that's one of the problems I see, because the amount of times I've been asked over the last 6 months, should I be doing emailing as well? Or should I be doing cold calling as well? Or should I be doing LinkedIn as well? It's like, no, do everything. Do everything as much as you can, because different people prefer to be contacted in different ways. And if you're just trying to get hold of a specific prospect on LinkedIn, and they either don't like LinkedIn, they don't check their messages, you could be working them already, but you've just been like lazy with your outreach, or not varied enough with your outreach. So with like message sequences and cadences are a big thing at the moment. Like that's like one of the hot things, and there's obviously a lot of tools and automation software out there. How did you learn how to write good message cadences and put together good sequences? And then what does that look like? Like for people listening, if you could give a few tips around how they can actually do that.
Yeah, the way I learned was a lot of trial and error, to be honest. So I've wasted tens of thousands of cold emails on crap. to be honest. And eventually you see what people react to. And what I really learned is, and to give you a few examples, is you have to really niche. Sorry, point one is have a good offer. And a good offer is not, hey, we have a salary survey like every other recruiter in the business. Do you want my salary survey? Sorry, that just doesn't cut it anymore. You need to give them a reason to contact you. And that could either be a difference in the way you work, like you say, David. Hey, you have a really specific way of working that gives a framework to allow people to bring something different to clients. That could be a hook. What I propagate on my own email newsletter is that you could also change your whole business model, right? So you could create a community, you could create a job board, because let's say you come to a client and he's been contacted by recruitment firms 10 times in the last week. And rather than say, hey, we're recruitment firm number 10, please use us, you could say, hey, I noticed you had this role open for 4 weeks. It's quite hard to fill, and I understand you probably don't want to use a recruitment firm. We have a job board here that's specific to your niche. And for 100 quid, we can actually put your job online. And in your area, we have, in my database, I see that we have 200 people in your area that could be interesting to you. 100 quid is probably enough of a gamble that he'll say, you know what, just do it. And then you have his email contacts. He likes you. You sold something to him. And then after that, if he doesn't get a reply or it doesn't work out, you can then say, hey, we also do recruitment services. So rather than just be a recruiter, you have to diversify now and really be a partner to your client. So just to summarize, one, you need a good offer. And the offer is not, hey, I can help you find people. I have 10 people in your area. Please hire me, because everybody does that. So that just doesn't cut the bill anymore. So find a way to be unique to you. Two, then you need to be specific to their issue. And their issues usually are when they need people to hire, right? And that could either be that you name a specific pain point. So you use a job opening, say, hey, I noticed you had a data engineer role open. Let's talk about it. Or it could be just in general saying, hey, I noticed that let's say you did your proper research and he's a data engineering manager with at least 15 employees underneath him. Then you'd know, hey, I know that for data engineering managers that have at least 10 people in their team, hiring is really an issue. And it's not just about finding one person, it's about finding a continual pipeline of data engineers to be able to grow your team. We can help you with that. And then rather than just say, hey, I want to be paid on an up-person basis, but, try something different. Try and say, hey, you always have a few roles open. Let's make a deal for more roles in a different way, rather than just say, hey, call me when you have a role. So do something different again. And then when you name a specific pain point he's having and that you understand his pain point, then do a quick call to action. Say, hey, I could help you out. Can we get on a 10-minute? Would you be willing to do a 10-minute call so I can explain myself? And then if you do that in a non-salesy way, so just rather than spend 30 hours optimizing the message, just have the structure next to you and write it like you would say it. That's usually what my thing is. So just type it out. And when I have the structure, I don't spend more than 5 minutes on an email, because then it's going to look like I created it and I'm going to blasting it out to hundreds of people. It needs to feel like I wrote it for him. And so you need to write it like it's for him. So, and how much time are you going to spend on an email? Maybe 5 minutes. So do it in 5 minutes, take out take out if it's bad, and then start again. And then after that, you have a very short email saying, hey, this is what we do. Try and make it different. Make sure you have a pain point or something that acknowledges him, and a hook that knows, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, and then do a quick call to action.
So when it comes to personalizing emails, because, I hear and read such different things on this. I saw one on LinkedIn the other day. Some guy does like a 5-5-5 rule. So it's like 5 minutes researching, 5 minutes writing it, and then 5 minutes. I can't remember what the other thing was, but it was like 15 minutes per email basically, and you're sending like 4 an hour, and then they worked it out that it can pay off really well. Are you personalizing, or would you recommend personalizing every single email, or is it better off to do like what I mentioned earlier, like having a really small list and then having a personalized email that fits all those people, and then you just mass send it?
Yeah. the answer is always it depends, and the reason it is that it depends on how large your target market is. I am very much in favor of niching down as a recruiter, because if you niche down, then you know what your target market is, and sometimes perhaps your target market will be 300 hiring managers for some reason. If that's your target market, don't do any automation, just write personal emails, spend the time, and make sure you get to know people. But if you're in a niche, so let's say you do data managers in a subsidiary of Manchester, and it's very small, and then okay, I'm going to be the guy in this, then that's fine. Do everything personal. But if you're going to go larger and say, hey, I want UK data managers between 30 and 50 employees, then spend a lot of time building out the lists and making sure they're fresh, they're good, and that they're fully niched down, and then create an email sequence that's unique to that specific ICP, ideal customer profile, for people who don't know, and then blast the email. Because the only reason, the goal, you have to keep the goal in mind, right? And the goal is that the person that receives the email feels heard and doesn't feel like he's talking to a bot. And if you can achieve that through automation, that's awesome. But if that's too much work because your target audience is very small, just create a personal message. Why not? Do the 555 and just spend the time.
So two questions that I'm really interested in. So with regards to personalization, that's obviously a word that gets thrown around a lot. And a lot of people don't know what that really means. Like, I saw one really rubbish one on LinkedIn the other day, and it was like, hey, noticed you went to X school. Really interesting to know that. It's like, fucking hell. But so what does that look like? Like, how would you, if you were working in like a really tight niche market, yeah? So say you've got like a really small market, and you're able to spend that time of spending 5 minutes doing research and another 5 minutes writing the email, etc.
Yeah.
Where would you go? Like, would you look at their LinkedIn profile, their website? Would you look at Google News? Like, what would you do?
I would usually, if I write my email myself, I look at the news of the business. So if there's any specific news that just came out to reference. And two, I would look at their LinkedIn profile, look if anything new, special pops up. For instance, he might have been in the role for only 3 months. So you can reference that. And three, look at their job openings and say, hey, how many jobs openings do they have? And if you look on the on Indeed or on LinkedIn, usually companies forget to take their roles offline, meaning you can look back pretty far at past roles. So you can usually say, hey, I noticed you've had 3 data engineer roles open in the last 3 months. How's that going, right? So then you really reference something that's the issue to him.
Right. Yeah, because I suppose then you could say, are these relisted postings? Are you struggling with this? Or are you having a problem with retention? Or is it just constant growth? But is the key thing to show that you've actually spent time like digging a little bit?
Yeah, and either I have to spend, I have to show him that I've spent time digging, or I reference something that's so specific to him, like saying, "Hey, I know your problems are this, this, and this," that he'll be like, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about." So either spend the time researching what their issues are, or just spend time researching for the email. Either one of those.
Okay, and then with regards to actually building the list, and again, I know it could be like a sort of it depends answer again, but I think it's really important for people to understand. I think it's really important for people to understand because a lot of people they hear personalize. Someone will say to them, "Oh, personalize your email or build a tight list," but that they don't know what that means. Is that 5 minutes? Is that 2 hours? I don't know. Like if you were like. Yeah, I mean, if say you were like looking for data engineers for teams of like 20 to 50 in Amsterdam, for example, like how long is a good amount of time to spend on that list realistically?
If the list is more than 1,000 people in size that you're eventually going to email, I'd happily spend 2 to 3 hours on the list.
Yeah. Okay.
No worries. Like the list is everything. For instance, I've also, perhaps we'll get to that later, but I've been busy with creating a list of companies that have physical locations in the Netherlands, because we have a specific recruitment offer that we'd like to give them. There are at least 500 companies that have more than 5 physical locations. if I also take in the time of like an Indian guy from Fiverr that's been doing the work, where we are up to 8 hours on the list, of which 3 to 4 are mine, because I just want the total list of each business, of every company that has 5 locations or more. And that's really hard to create. But once you have it, it's like a gold mine. So spend the time.
Hmm.
That's usually, funny enough, where I spend most of my time with clients as well, is that I spend a lot of time on my lists, because once I have the list and I know they're solid, then we can do automations, we can do anything we want, but we first need to have the list be proper.
Yeah, I think that's a common mistake I see, and I've made it as well myself, working with automation. And that your list is, you put up a search of like 2,000 people on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, you pump that into your automation software.
Yep.
The list is like so varied that you can't really personalize it on mass, on scale.
What for instance happens as well is actually a thing I just thought of is everybody who who knows LinkedIn know that when you do a specific Boolean search, in the beginning you'll get people that are exactly within your Boolean search, but after a while, when the people are actually done, what LinkedIn will do, it will actually broaden the search to make sure you keep on scrolling down the thing. So what happens is, if you do a LinkedIn automation, you say, hey, give me data engineering managers between 11 and 50 employees in the UK, and you just have a list of 2,500 people, don't put that list into LinkedIn automation and let it run. Because what happens is after a while, after about 1,500 as an example, the data engineering manager are actually done, and then it will backfill the other 1,000 with sort of random people. They'll be like, hey, why are you messaging me with this message? So even if you do a LinkedIn automation, each person goes through my eyes to check if the person is right for the email LinkedIn sequence I'm creating. You just have to do the work.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've made this. Of course, I've made this mistake before, and that's what everybody thinks. They think, "Hey, it's automation. I'm just gonna put in a few filters, copy paste the URL, and then I'm gonna do this for a while, and then I'll see what comes in,
And
and
then
then
here
that
comes
goes
the
well."
money.
Yeah, and then after it goes well for 2 weeks, and after that, the shit starts.
Yeah.
So you really have to
Interesting.
spend the time, and it's honestly not fun to do at all. So I understand that clients don't want to do it, but this is really where the magic happens. If you build the lists properly, then you're in business.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my issues with, I'm very vocal about it. No one's going to be surprised about what I'm going to say. But with the typical way that recruitment agencies are run, you might have had this in your job with an agency. I certainly did, where sometimes you're not given the time to do stuff like this, and that's where the quality really falls down. And
Yep.
this is where I think a lot of education needs to happen around the time you spend on activities, because typical recruitment, contingent recruitment, agency recruitment is so reactive and it's
Yep.
so short-sighted that if I was to say a few years ago when I got into recruitment that my manager would be like, "What are you doing today?" "Oh, I'm just spending 3 hours building a list of like target people." They'd be like, "No, you need to do 2 hours on the phone today."
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest issue is that I think you know as well. You've been busy building your personal brand. I'm just starting, but eventually, most of the added value for us will come from building a personal brand. But that's really a long game, and it's the same for recruiters. But no, there's not going to be a manager in the recruitment space that's going to say, "Hey, you just spend 10 hours a week building your personal brand, and then in 3 years we're going to reap the benefits." Nobody's
Yeah.
going to do it. But if you and I are completely honest today, each recruiter should use 10 hours a week to build personal brand, and then in a few years you're gonna be offloaded with sales. Like you're not going to be able to do any more sales because you've got enough people coming into you, asking you to help them. But that's just not the reality of how business runs today. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's like it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of businesses they don't want their recruiters to build a strong personal brand anyway, because even though it will
True.
like could generate more revenue, they're so scared of that recruiter getting so well known that they will just get approached by another company, which is obviously a whole other problem. But I think everyone should try and build a personal brand no matter what they do, really, like on LinkedIn or within their it doesn't even have to be on LinkedIn necessarily, but LinkedIn is obviously the most obvious place at the moment. And the reason being is it just gives you options and it gives you security. Like the way the economy is moving at the moment, and obviously, you know, the war in Russia and all this other crap that's going on, God knows what's around the corner. But it's so important to have this network, because if you look at these like internal recruiters, you know, obviously all the talent acquisition people have been laid off in America and the UK. The ones that bounce back so quickly are the ones that already have this mass network. They've got, you know, 15, 25, 35,000 followers. All they have to do is put a post out. Hey guys, available immediately. They have 6 interviews that week. They've got a new job next week and they've probably got a pay rise. So I think it's just so important because I think as well, I don't know what you think, but I feel like the way we work is going to change a lot in the next 10 years because of automation, but also the whole rise of like the gig economy. Like you mentioned Fiverr earlier and all these sort of websites where you can pick up freelance stuff. And yeah,
it's going to change a lot. And that's also why I'm very enthusiastic about creating new business models for recruitment, such as creating a community. I recently finished a stint in the Netherlands with a company that's called Community, but with a Q, and they do marketing roles like this. And because marketers are usually a lot more project based, right? So they either do a short stint somewhere, or they're a photographer, or they're a graphic designer, and they'll have different jobs next to each other. So the community is essentially a place for contractors to come together and just share information, but it's also a job board. So people pay money to be able to access that community, and then they can see interesting jobs at Heineken or doesn't really matter what, and then they can actually react to the posts. And what the funny thing is that these types of businesses, they're a job board. They're a community that they actually have to pay to be a part of, but they're also a recruitment firm, because Heineken will also come to us saying, hey, you had graphic designers last time, right? Yeah, we really don't have the time to spend to select people. So can you just give us the best 3, and you just you get a recruitment fee for that? So it's really a lot of ways to generate revenue other than just saying, hey, hire me to be a recruiter. So it's going to change a lot, especially in the gig economy.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see what happens over the next few years. But obviously, you're going to play a big part in that. So, job leads. Talk to us about job leads. What does it do? Yeah. Like,
so I also buy into the indie hacker productize your service mindset. And the reason being is because I love automation. So like I said, I'm always trying to find ways to do things better and quicker and cheaper for myself and for clients. And I've done a lot of business development in the last few years, either by phone call or by email or by LinkedIn, whatever. But if a client needs money now, or they say, hey, we need to get business ready now or done now, what do? You look at job listings, because that's the only real pain point that allows you to see, hey, this business has an issue. I have a solution for that problem, and they're willing to pay money for it because they're willing to pay a salary. So we always look at the job listings as recruiters, and then we try and find the hiring manager, and then we send them an email, and then 9 times out of 10 they don't respond, and then you have to send 100 emails to get 10 replies, and then you get 3 meetings, and then you get a job. That's awesome, but that takes up a lot of time because there are a lot of manual actions in between, because you have to look at jobs, you have to you have to go to LinkedIn, find the proper person to find, and it just takes too much time. And then at one point I said, hey, we should be able to automate part of this. So let's just try and find out. And then at the beginning, I just started myself scraping jobs with the Phantom Buster or another scraping tool, and then just filtering it and trying to do it in bulk. That still takes up a lot of time, and it's annoying. And if you build a small scraper, I sent you a screenshot yesterday from someone that's building their own scraper, right? And I did that as well 1.5 years ago. But the issue is it breaks a lot. LinkedIn doesn't like you scraping, even though you have maybe 100 job listings. And let's say you're trying to get the engineering manager, you have a data engineer role again. what if there's a business that's below 50 persons in size, you probably need to see the CEO or the founder. But if it's 10,000 in size, you don't even need to you don't need the data engineering manager or the CTO, because he doesn't even know that there's a role open. You probably need the data lead or something. So there's like a staffel in there, right? So you still, even though you have the job listings, if you want to pair that with contact data, you still have to spend all of the time filtering through it and saying, hey, in this business, in this specific business, who should I get? Should I get the CTO? Should I get the engineering manager, the CEO, the founder, etc.? And that's what I essentially first tried to build with just a little bit of no code, which eventually failed miserably because it's just too hard to build with no code. It's too fragile. It doesn't work at all. So then I really hired a developer to create job leads for me. And what we essentially do now is then you have a business, so you have data engineer again. We scrape data engineer roles from LinkedIn, Indeed, and Monster. We filter those. So we have to filter out other recruitment firms, IT consultancies, really anything you want filtered out. We have to filter that out. After that, we have to enrich the data. So we have company X here, but company X, we need to know how many employees they have, what industry they're in, any other data, etc. So we have to go out and find the data on that, which is actually quite hard, because if you put that into Google or into Apollo or into any other database, you don't always get a hit. So you need to have like different ways of searching for data for that specific firm. Then when we have the data, then you still need to find the contact. And then when you have the contact, when you've identified him, then we need to enrich that contact as well. And we have an algorithm running for that, because let's say you're usually looking for a data engineering manager in a medium-sized business. He could be named completely different within that business, right? Because everybody thinks of their own job title names. So we actually scrape up to 15 contacts from a company, and then we have that are within the niche that we're looking for. And then we actually have an algorithm that scores everything, and it says, okay, based on everything, on location, on job description, the department that they're in and the department that they're running, this is most likely the hiring manager for this specific role. And then we pair the data with the job data, and then we have a whole database saying, hey, company X has a data engineer role, and this is the data manager, this is his LinkedIn, this is his name, this is his email, and then we can feed that into an email system, or we do that for them. So we actually allow people to scrape, so to create, I have to say, unique scrapes, because there are a lot of databases out there that pair contact data with job postings, but that's always old because they try and scrape the whole internet. So we actually create proprietary scrapes for each of the companies that we work for, and also create a unique algorithm for each company we work for. Because, for instance, some companies might just want the hiring manager, right? They don't always need the hiring manager. So we should discuss this. You have your own scrape that runs 24/7 and that supplies you with data. And then if you want, we can also do the outreach for you, because of course I've done loads of that, so that's fine as well. So if there's a company that's a little bit less far ahead in the email journey to say, I usually set it up for them and run it for them. And sometimes people have already been using Instantly, they're already using whatever email tools to send emails. Then we just plug the data into their email tool. We help them create the messaging, and then it just runs. And it keeps on running, with the goal usually to say, hey, if you like data, if you want to hire, if you're the guy that knows data engineers in Manchester, then every data engineering manager in Manchester, when they have a role open, they'll know your name, they know what you do. So when they have issues hiring for the data manager, they know how to find you.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize you actually did. You can actually do the outreach as well, so you can do like a done for you service essentially.
Yeah, because not everybody, not every company is ready to do all of the emailing themselves. Actually, a lot of people aren't.
I would say most.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say, from what I've seen in the recruitment world, it's very rare to find a recruiter or a recruitment agency. It's even rarer to find a recruitment agency, but that are like continuously trying to improve. Because I think one of the main issues I see in the recruitment world and not just in the UK, in the US, I've seen it in like different countries, different continents. We as an industry, we don't have the same level of like obsession with improvement like SaaS sales does. Like tech sales is always like 5-6 years ahead of recruitment. Like cold calling, for example, you can see there's so much good advice on LinkedIn nowadays about cold calling, how to structure a cold call, pattern interrupts, whatever. Recruiters, I think I've only ever come across a couple that are actually in our WhatsApp group that actually have looked at what works most recently in cold calling and what people are reacting most to, and like data driven stuff. And it's the same as with like what you're talking about, like message cadences and looking into the data and how you structure an email nowadays. How many times like have you seen an email from a recruiter where it's just they all write the same thing? It's like everyone was trained by the same person 15 years ago. It's always like, how are you doing? I'm just getting in touch because of blah. This is what we do. We're a IT recruitment specialist. We've got 25 years combined experience. So I don't care. I really don't care.
I'm sorry, guys, but that doesn't cut it anymore. I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion, but we are at least 10 years behind on sales and marketing.
Yeah,
like what they do and their knowledge, it's really ridiculous. That's also funny because let's say I have a funny story to tell. Like I work for a large firm as well, and they're in 15 countries. So they're like, I think they must have 500 plus employees at the moment, and they're sending out cold email in each different country. So I was having a discussion with them about job leads and how it was running, and they said, "Yeah, our email delivery is not that high." I was like, "Okay, but why? What do you do? What email campaigns do you run?" And then he said, "Yeah, but I said, "How many emails do you send a day?" It's like 300 from my account, 300 from the other account, and then we have all different countries. They're also sending out a cold email. And it's like, "But which domain do you use?" He said, "We're all using the same domain." And I was like, "But." Like if you look at the knowledge now, if you're doing cold email, you should be doing 150 a day per thing maximum, and for personal email on that email domain, only 50 a day. And he's like, "Whoa, we're way over." I was like, "Yeah, you have to set this up now. Like you're gonna be banned everywhere." People just don't know.
No, they don't. I didn't. I only started learning about email deliverability at start of this year, really, because I was looking into like delivery rates, and I think I was just setting up my own domain and stuff for my website, and I sort of came across it, and it might have been someone on LinkedIn actually, but someone was talking about like their delivery rate was only like 15%, and I was like, what? Like I always assumed that 90% of my emails got to where I sent them. And occasionally they would get blocked or spammed, but not often. But I was talking to someone the other day, and they paid they're like a medium-sized agency, but they paid a consultant like a lot of money to come in and get their response rate from 10% to 60%.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. If anyone's looking for good information on email deliverability, we're going to be, I think David and I are going to be posting about this as well. But Twitter is the place to be, because that's where all the sales and marketing guys are that do cold outreach. So follow people on Twitter. That will help.
Who would you recommend to follow them?
I don't have anyone at the moment, but what I would do is I would type in demand gen or lead gen agency on Twitter, and then you get a lot of guys that run lead gen agencies, and they do a lot of posting about email deliverability. Or just type in email deliverability as a search term, and you'll get pretty far, because there are people that do threads that specifically tell you on what to do and what you need to have in place to ensure that you have better email deliverability. Because if you have anything below 80%, you're done, because if soon half of your emails are not going to find any, are not going to be able to, not being sent anymore. And if you're unlucky, not even your cold emails, but your warm emails will come in spam as well, and then you're truly fucked.
Yeah, it happened to me recently, actually. It wasn't. I don't think it was me, actually. It was someone sent. It was a client that I'm working with, and they replied to my email, and their email went to my spam, and I didn't see it.
Yeah, that's
So they had to message me on LinkedIn to say, "Hey, did you get my email a few days ago?" And I was like, "No." And I said to them, I was like, "You really need to look into that, because if you're emailing someone who's already sent you an email and you're replying to it and it's going to spam, something's seriously wrong there, and that can really affect your BD."
Yeah, definitely. So this is really my bread and butter for my business. Is that recruitment firms generally, they have an ATS system set up. They have their old ways, and now they have to explore new ways. So they have to get a CRM. They have to start running ads. They have to do cold email outreach, and they just really have no clue. So they don't even know where to start. And then we usually come in, and start with the low hanging fruit. Do one thing, get their email deliverability a bit up, so that means that their cold emails are getting sent. They have a higher email deliverability, and then when the low hanging fruit is gone, we implement the CRM. We ensure that all the leads are put into it. We set up lead gen, and then it starts to roll. But most firms, like, if you have a 20-person firm, you're not going to have you're not going to have an all-round growth hacker marketer that knows all of these things. It's just too
No.
expensive, right? You have to get recruiters that need to be billable. That's what you do. So I understand, like, it's logical, but it's like, we're coming to a point now in the economy that you really need to get all of these things in place in order to to survive.
But I think a lot of agencies make this mistake in that when they're having problems, so many people at the moment this year are struggling to bring on any clients. So not even bring on clients, book meetings. They're not getting any responses from their email. They're not getting any responses from their LinkedIn. They're spending all this money on automation software, and they're using it horribly. And then they say, "Oh, automation doesn't work." But what they do instead is, rather than spending, a couple of grand on someone to come in and fix the actual problem, which is email deliverability or how they're writing messages or how they're doing cold calls or whatever, they'll go hire someone, like a new consultant who's developed loads of business in their previous job, for 40, 50,000. So they'll spend the money on them, and they'll be spending 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 a month on that consultant who may or may not deliver, but they won't bring in a consultant or do some training or something. I think it's mental, because if you have, rather than bringing in one potentially good consultant who may or may not work out, who isn't going to train the others, by the way, because they're going to be too busy doing their own thing. And you've already got 10 consultants that are hardworking, they're doing okay. Why don't you just spend 3, 4, 5, 10K, whatever it is, to improve the 10 consultants you've got? So turn those 10 consultants from 6 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. And that alone will bring in an extra couple 100,000 revenue at least. But I don't know why. I don't know what it is. It goes back to the whole thing of recruitment agencies generally being they're so not invested in developing. They just want to hire and grow, and it's all mindless.
It's all a bit. It's often a bit too short-sighted or short-term. Like, hey, we know when we hire a consultant, he's going to be billable for X after 6 months. So let's just do that, so we know we're going to get future revenue, rather than just up the revenue that you have. And it's interesting. Like I told you before we started, I have a whole infrastructure mapped out to create an almost fully automated agency, because I think if you start an agency now from the ground up using all of these methods, you're going to get really far. And yes, you can automate everything. The issue is the client side. So if I would start an agency today, I would start a contract agency, because it's a lot more transactional with the candidates, and you can actually also earn more money. But rather than just doing if you do recruitment, so you need to coast someone into a new job, and it's way more emotional, rather than with a contract. It's like, hey, you have X experience, they need that, let's do it. So that makes it easier to automate. But I can automate an agency up to 95% and just leave the client contact as something that needs to be done. But all of it, meaning WhatsApp communication, WhatsApping candidates that are a good fit for the role, asking them to send their resume, updated resume, introducing it to the client, setting up meetings, everything can be automated. And if you do it that way around, so actually start fresh, then build it up in the automated way, and then add people, I think you can do 2 or 3 times more work with the same amount of people. It's ridiculous. Because anything a recruiter really needs to do in a day is talk to candidates, talk to clients, and anything else they do is fluff. That's it. You don't want that. You don't want that at all.
Yeah, it's going to be, what'll be interesting actually to see if this is what happens in the future, because like, will we basically have automated agencies running on autopilot, and then you sort of have like supervisors, like who sort of monitor the systems and make sure things are doing what they're meant to be doing.
Yeah. So what we actually build now, and this is not a recruitment firm, but it's just to give you an idea. So we're building a service for companies with more than 5 physical locations. And this is essentially what we do. So we do all of the recruiting automated. It's then distributed to the specific location manager. There's a central person that actually takes care of if the candidates are spoken and if everything is done. But the whole flow of people that apply to a specific role and then are actually introduced to the location managers, setting up meetings and signing contracts after, everything is automated. And that's why, because a lot of these physical locations like retail companies, they don't have money to have a central recruiter. So they're just, what they do is they spray and they pray and they hope that people come to them. But there's a lot of issues with getting enough personnel in retail at the moment. So that's why that system is going to work very well, because they're like, hey, we want a cheaper option than a recruiter, but it needs to be as automated as possible using WhatsApp and whatever. And that's what we build. So the candidate side we're actually building now. It's doable, more than doable actually. And this is for blue collar retail work, right? So the lower in the tree you get in terms of education, the easier it is to automate stuff. That's definitely true. So if you're going to hire a data engineer, he's going to want to talk to someone. Of course he's going to. But if your mindset is, we're going to automate everything and then we're going to inject a person at the point where it has the most value, that's a whole different ballgame than people trying to call, than a recruiter trying to call a data engineer all the time, spending 5 hours trying to get it done, and then you just, if you have 10 different assignments running at the same time, you're trying to call people, that's where all the fluff comes in. And what do you do in there? Well, mostly nothing. But if you have all of those systems automated and you're more of a supervisor, like in the company that we have with the physical locations, you just have a supervisor that supervises everything and injects himself when it's needed. That'll work. So we're building it.
It's fun. It's exciting times, man. It's exciting times. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there was this AI guy on there. I think it was on the Joe Rogan Experience, and
cool.
The guy was saying how, with the invention of like automation and AI and the way things are going with ChatGPT and stuff, what's really interesting actually is what they're seeing is, because everyone sort of assumed that with AI and technology and stuff, all the low-skilled jobs would be replaced first. But actually what they're seeing is it's actually the knowledge workers that are being replaced. Because it's so much harder. Like 20 years ago, we didn't know what was going to happen with robots and stuff. But what they're actually seeing is it's so much easier to replace knowledge workers, developers, software engineers, that sort of thing, than it is to actually have someone move a brick, like a bricklayer.
Of course.
And
think about it. Like if I would have free roam of LinkedIn, so I could scrape anything I'd like. What I would do is I would continually refresh the database, and there are companies that do this, right? So there are companies that have up-to-date LinkedIn databases. You go there, you have API or Zapier access. So you can just, if I have a role right now, most ATS systems already offer a possibility to analyze the role and then actually say which candidates are best for the role. They all have that already. So what you do is you get as much of your niche into your ATS system, and then do the matching, send them a WhatsApp or an email, introduce candidates, and then you're already done. So it's already the infrastructure is already there. It's just filling it in, and contact with the candidate through a ChatGPT like interface is still quite hard to do. We're doing that now. So simple conversations are actually possible. But if you're going to more of a knowledge worker base and people really have in-depth questions about the role, that's still a little bit harder. But that's just another nut to crack. Like the bricks that are needed to do this are already there.
So to end this podcast, do you think, or when do you think, recruiters are going to be replaced by AI? Do you think it will ever happen?
Never. But what will happen is that I don't know if this is in English term as well, but you're 13 in a dozen, we say. So you have 12 eggs, it's a dozen, and then 13 in a dozen is exactly the same as the other 12. Any recruiter that does not niche himself down or creates a personal brand for themselves, they're going to be gone, because they're going to be people like me. I don't want to start an automated recruitment firm. It's more like it's more of a game to me. Like I want to see how far I can get. But there are going to be people who will do this. So if you have the vanilla type of agencies, they're going to be automated vanilla type of agencies that are going to do the work quicker than you can, and probably better, because you can actually tell people what you're going to do because it's all automated. So they can send update emails. They can say, hey, we have this many candidates in profiles. So actually the service sometimes becomes better if you're talking about process when it's automated. So if you don't segment yourself, if you don't have a personal brand, then in 10 years, you're going to have a big issue, because people are going to buy brand. But recruiters are never going to be gone. They're going to be there, but they're going to be less.
To see if like in like 50 years, if people look back on recruitment agencies now and be like, wow, that's so old fashioned, how they used to have like humans doing everything.
I can't even, like, we're about the same age. Like, I still know the old dial way of internet, right? So that you have to call in through your landline. It's like boom, 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 boom. So I was telling my girlfriend the other day, I was like, I'm gonna tell my kid when he's 12 and he understands a bit better, I'm going to tell him, hey, we did not have mobile phones or internet when we were young. Like we had to sit behind a computer, dial in through the phone, and then have 20 minutes of gaming. And then we were shut off because my dad wanted to call my grandfather, and then he needed the line. And he's going to laugh at me in the face. He's like, Dad, we've had this all along. I'm going to be like, no, dude, we never had this. So in 50 years, it's going to be...
This is going to be like fucking... old technology soon, because with what Elon Musk is doing, and cybernetic implementations in your brain and stuff, like that's what Elon thinks is going to happen. He thinks we're going to, like, because he said basically we are already a cyborg, because we are basically a cyborg. We've just outsourced it to this, but eventually it's probably just going to be here. So
I agree with it, but it's cool. So the thing is, I don't want to I don't want to push myself to all agencies, but get someone like me on your team, hire someone, ensure that you're growing, do new things, trial, get HubSpot, try some ads, try an email cadence, and if you can't find it out, set up a call with me or anyone else. But you need to get going with innovating. And either it's through a new business model, start a community. I see a lot of SaaS and sales-oriented recruitment firms start communities because it really just works. So do that. Start a job board, which I've also seen done very successfully regionally, really to up the region and to ensure that all of the company owners want to talk to you in a region. It works as well. So just innovate.
Yeah, community is everything. Community is so important.
And if you have someone internally, oftentimes when I work with recruitment firms, I either work with the owner, but the owner is very busy. So usually I work with a recruiter internally that really likes automation and trying new things. So try and find someone within your agency that would really like to do this, and give him the time in the week to just trial and error, work things out, try. Give him budget. He'll fail 10 times, but the 11th time he'll get you a new line for business development, and then that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. Actually, finding someone who's actually interested in automation and offloading it to them, and then obviously they're going to run with it. So Cas, look, thanks so much for coming on. If people want to work with you, want to see more about your stuff, or chat with you, how do they find you?
Follow me on LinkedIn or send me an invite on LinkedIn. And if you want, I recently started a newsletter. It's called Recrt.ai, and it's really just my brand revolving around anything innovative in the recruitment industry. So it's going to be a broad newsletter talking about email deliverability, using AI in recruitment. How would I create an automated agency today? Like anything that interests me that's in that recruitment space. I'm talking about. I'm also doing A/B testing with ads to get more candidates and get more clients. And so anything that's either tactical or strategic within the innovation space in recruitment, I'm busy with that. So give me a follow there, and let's innovate. Let's try.
Awesome. And your how do they sign up to your newsletter?
Sorry, that's Recrt.ai .beehive.com, but you can actually find it through my LinkedIn profile. So on my LinkedIn profile, there's a link saying sign up to my newsletter. You can find it there.
Is that the Recrt.ai? Because I noticed you spelled it differently. Is it RECRT?
Yeah, I tried to buy the Recruit one, like full pronunciation AI, but that the guy wanted $100,000 for that. So I'm like,
right.
I hope to be buying this off of you in 3 years, because that means I'm doing well. But for now, let's keep it keep it like this.
Okay, cool. So it's recrt.ai for the Recrt.ai newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. I'll put all the links in the bio description anyway. So just if you want to work with Cas, you'll be able to find his LinkedIn profile really easy. Sub to his newsletter to keep up to date with all the latest going-ons in the recruitment AI world.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Nice one, mate. Cheers for coming on.